Hello, dear listeners. You're listening to the GamePitch Podcast, a weekly chat between two pals that is all about video games and the game industry.
Every week, we'll bring you the latest gaming news, hand out industry red cards, and pitch an all-new game idea.
The GamePitch Podcast drops Monday mornings on the Project Nerd Podcast Network.
It's the perfect antidote to your end of the weekend blues.
I'm JD.
And I'm Eli. Let's get to the show.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the GamePitch Podcast. I am one of your hosts, JD, here with my co-host, as always, Elijah. Eli, you want to say hi to everyone?
Well, hello, listeners, and hello to you, the Don Juan of the GamePitch Podcast. You're a friend of the cartel. We all know this,
of course,
much like James McGill. And I just hope that you're well, you're prospering in this time.
Do you think Jimmy is the friend of the cartel, or is Saul Goodman the friend of the cartel?
It's Senor Saul Goodman, but I mean, look.
Come on.
Yeah, he's James McGill. He's Slippin' Jimmy.
He's Slippin' Jimmy. It is who he is, isn't it?
Senor Slippin' Jimmy. This is not a Better Call Saul podcast.
If you're tuning in for the first time, we talk about video games on this podcast, not Better Call Saul, but how could we not bring it up with the incredible finale? Yeah. Some other exciting changes to the pod this week. So we are officially on Spotify now. Our entire back catalog, all 10 episodes that we've done so far, are available to stream, as well as all 4 episodes that we're going to produce. They'll be on Spotify, in addition to all the other places that we're at, which is Apple, Google Play. We're on YouTube. We're going to start putting out more content through Twitter and Instagram. So, I mean, we are all over the web, right?
Mm-hmm. You can find us in all the places. I mean, and even in some of the places you don't expect to find us, we're there. You're just like, oh, what?
We are there.
Yeah, why are you pitching me a game?
Yeah, and it's like more awkward than it is anything else. Like, and it's probably hurting our brand image, but we are there and we're going to continue doing it.
We're at the rodeo. You're on the bull. And then for whatever reason, I just come running beside you and I'm like, hey, I've got this game idea. It's about dogs and it's like Overcooked. And then they're just like, what?
They're like, what is happening? So speaking of hurting our brand image, we are also looking for sponsors officially. If you are interested in being a sponsor on the show, hit us up. Twitter, you can email us. We'll drop all those fun links at the end of the show. This show is, as always, a packed show, and it could have been even fuller, right? So as we've started over the last couple of weeks, we do draft the news now. We have a cool YouTube exclusive segment where we go through and we take our sort of first draft picks for the news, and everything that doesn't make it in, we do have a exclusive series called Extra Time on YouTube, where all those news pieces that didn't quite make the cut to get it into the pod, we still talk about them, we still break them down. So make sure you're jumping onto our YouTube channel and checking that out. What else? What am I missing, Eli?
Well, it's like the fastballs are our firstborn kid. We're always going to, love it a little bit more. And Extra Time is really our second or third child. And it's just like the one that's just like, he's running with scissors. He'll be fine. Like, I've seen worse. The worst that could happen is he'll lose an eye. So Extra Time.
He has the
2. Third child. Tell me what you've been playing this week, bud.
Oh man, I've been playing a little less games this week and kind of doing a little more like quarantine-y, like having real world experience. So I was doing some baking this week, got really into that. We did this from scratch, like blueberry sweet rolls that we made that were just amazing. This morning, we're actually recording the pod a little bit later than normal because I was taking a Zoom cooking class with one of the chefs, Nini, that participated on Top Chef, and she was doing a Japanese pancake cooking class. So we did that this morning. They came out super good, and like I'm super stoked to make those again. And if I haven't been baking and if I haven't been cooking, I've been playing Animal Crossing. As if I really needed to say that, I'm pretty sure it's a given now. What about you?
This is a big week for Animal Crossing news. Like, we're going to have a ton to talk about. Me personally, I actually haven't been playing too much this week as well. So we are simpatico in that, sense. Well, what's cool about that, though, is I have been watching a ton of Halo lore videos. Like, I found this, like, Halo canon YouTube, and I went down the rabbit hole, man. Like, I know all of Avery Johnson's history. Like, I know, like, I've just been, like, diving deep into the lore of Halo. I recently replayed all of them, and I'm just kind of trying to brush up on, like, I know why the armor, like the EVA armor and the CQC armor and the CQB, like, I'm, like, really, really deep in the weeds on all this Halo stuff. And I don't know, it's been fun to kind of just brush up on the lore of something that I already love. Right. I also downloaded A Fold Apart, which is a puzzle game that's about a long distance relationship. So that game is, if you watch the trailer, it's beautiful, it's fun, it's $20. So I downloaded that, haven't jumped into it yet. Nice. And then the other one I'm going to get is Telling Lies. That was the main reason. I saw the Telling Lies trailer, and I was like, you know what? I've been meaning to play Telling Lies. Annapurna Interactive makes those not quite games that are really impactful and story driven. So Telling Lies is coming out and has a lot of actors and actresses that I really like. Has one of the ladies from Westworld, what's her name? Clementine, I think. Or she's the second Clem, not the first Clem.
Right.
And then it also has, oh man, there's someone else that it has in it that I really like a lot. I'll have to remember the person when I watch the trailer again, or actually when I play the game. But it has some cool, interesting actors and actresses in it. Oh, it's the guy from Upgrade, that movie that's like where his body's taken over by the robot, like AI in him. It's that dude, and he's like the main guy. He even looks the same. So it's a weird game where you're like looking into people's video logs and you're telling a mystery story kind of thing. But yeah, it looks cool. So I'm looking forward to playing that soon too.
Yeah, that's Sam Barlow, I think, did Telling Lies, right? And it was like the first game he did was Her Story, and it's like this interactive drama that's like presented through like video clips on a computer screen. And I think Telling Lies is like super similar, right? And Her Story was super cool. So I think Telling Lies will be very, very cool as well. So that's awesome, man. I'll be excited to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, so look out for Fold Apart and Telling Lies reviews coming to projectnerd.com, the place that keeps the lights on, I guess, here.
They really do.
Yeah, well, one of those sponsors too. If you're a large to small business, we would really like you to G Fuel, like we're here. Like I will not drink this redacted water zero right now, and I will drink a G Fuel during this pod.
I will drop the word G Fuel every other sentence if I need to, okay? We're willing to go to great lengths for these sponsorship deals. And really, you can look forward to even more exclusive YouTube content then, because it'll just be me in a bathtub full of G Fuel. So, I mean... Look, there's a lot of opportunity here. Just hit us up, okay?
We don't need to scout anything ever again. It could be the G Fuel Report, brought to you by the Fuel List.
Brought to you by G Fuel. Sponsored by G Fuel.
Fuel in the game.
And then instead of picks, it's just like different flavors. So every week we are drafting flavors into this, and it's no news anymore. All we do is talk about G Fuel.
You know what I'm going to do next week? I'm gonna compile a list. This will be a fun little game we can play. I'm going to compile a list, and I'm going to have some fake ones in there too, and we're going to play a game of is it a real G Fuel flavor or not? And I'm just gonna throw them at you, buddy.
I love it. I'm into it. I'm so ready.
Done. Let's move to the fastballs and start talking about what people are here for. More than 8 minutes in. The game.
Thanks for listening. Now we're going to talk about a video game for once. If you haven't listened before, you don't know that I love Animal Crossing. If you have listened before, you know that I love Animal Crossing. So the first story that I drafted this week was about Elijah Wood. I'm sure if you are even remotely into the video game industry, you've heard about this. But the short of it is there was a person on Twitter who tweeted out what their turnip prices were. If you're not familiar with the stock market in Animal Crossing, basically you try to buy turnips low, sell them high. The prices that you get on your islands are sometimes not so great. And so people are taking to the internet and have created these amazing like websites and like trackers that you can see how your prices are going to go. And so someone tweeted out their prices, and Elijah Wood DM'd them on Twitter and asked, hey, can I come sell my turnips on your island? And so obviously like this person's freaking out. Like all their friends are on the island. They're running around with Elijah Wood, and he's like very polite, asking like, hey, is it okay if I pick some fruit? Like telling them that they have a beautiful island, right? And so that's the short version of the story. But if you get onto this person's Twitter, they posted out even more screenshots where like they were talking about Star Wars. And so to make it even better, at one point Elijah Wood in game in the chat goes, long live Ryan Johnson.
Yes.
And then Ryan Johnson takes that screenshot and makes it his Twitter headline, his Twitter header photo. This whole thing is just so good. And if you do follow us on Twitter, you'll see earlier this morning, someone remade a photo of Elijah Wood where he's on like his little electric scooter. They remade him in Animal Crossing with a little scooter. There's no bad about this story. Everything is so good.
This is such a win for Nintendo, and it's so far out of their wheelhouse, man. Because I actually have, and this will maybe make some of the podcast listeners hate me, some of them love me, but I actually have a directed by Ryan Johnson like sweatshirt that I wear around. It's in the Star Wars font with a Starfield behind it. Perfect. Just to like, because it's like my generation of people, it's Star Wars. I like it, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that it crapped on a lot of people's childhoods, and if you like Luke, you're not going to like Last Jedi. But I love that movie. But I also like Rise of Skywalker. You know, I just like Star Wars. So that's the thing. But what I want to say is like, it's so funny that like Ryan Johnson sees this like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing, or it's like
6 degrees of separation. Yeah.
It's so ridiculous that all the things that had to happen for this to go down. Now, the thing that I'm worried about, let's just say the person who opened the island with the turnip prices, let's just say her name's Sandra. So of Sandra's 8 friends that were on the island, can you imagine what it must have been like to be the person who got booted off?
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is MySpace top 8, like in the new gen. And like, imagine you're the one that's like, hey, can you get off real quick? Like, I need to get offline. And you're like, oh, okay, no problem, friend. And then like later that afternoon, you're seeing these Twitter photos of Elijah Wood like running around the island, and everyone's like, yeah, we're best friends.
You know what it is? It's just like, hey, Frank, remember that time I took you to the airport, but you couldn't take me? Last real quick thing I want to say, because I think Elijah Wood has like universal praise, just like people just like across the board. Like he's
great.
Not above criticism, but everyone just likes him. He's just one of those people that you're just like, this guy, he's awesome. Quick little Elijah Wood story, because my name is also Elijah. So I've met Elijah Wood multiple times at conventions, like managing the events behind the scenes, stuff like that. And the first time I met him, he was doing like the opening ceremonies where we like cut the ribbon and open the actual con, and like the freaking mayor of the city was there and all the stuff like that. And it was like, Elijah Wood, he's cutting open the ribbon. And so I walk up to him. He doesn't know who I am yet, because he's going to meet me later when he comes to do his panel, and then I'll walk him through stuff. But he doesn't know who I am. And I was like, hey man. And he just like looks at me. I was like, my name's Elijah too. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was just like, I used to think I was the coolest Elijah, or that I'd be the greatest Elijah in history. But then you came along. And then I just looked at him and I looked away and I walked away, like all sad. And then later, when he came by the panel room, I was just messing with you, man. I just like, and he was like, okay, good. Or like, he just had like a weird face, because I just like, for no reason, I don't know why, it seemed like the right thing to do in the moment. But that's it. That's my Elijah Wood story.
What if he canceled like his participation in the entire convention because of that moment? And he's like, oh my God, like I can't go through with this. And he just leaves, and it all stems back to you just like messing with him over his name.
I made sure to walk away as sad as I possibly could.
History could have changed for you right there.
You know what? History did change, because we have a new game that had the most concurrent viewers watching it in history. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Travis Scott, famous rapper, trap rap. He definitely he did his thing, man. So I've gone through like the full gambit of emotions for this story, you know, like it's the 7 stages of grief. Because like initially I'm like, this is so dumb. Concerts in video games, how is this a thing? And then like, you know, because Marshmello did the last one, and
right
now we have Travis Scott doing this one. But then the production value that they did, that Fortnite went from the first concert to this one, is insane, man. Because like he's like Godzilla size, he's rapping his famous tracks, he's debuting new tracks, they implemented new gameplay mechanics to let this happen. They debuted the first like swimming in the game, and everyone has been thinking that this is something that's coming later, that you'll be able to swim in the future in the game. So just from a system standpoint for Epic, and then also from a just performative creativity standpoint, like this is insane to me. Like this is such a cool crossover of genres and material, and I just think that it gives more validity to the games industry.
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, it broke the record for most concurrent players, over 12 million, right? Which is massive. And like you said, right, it's obviously a feat on a technological scale, not only to recreate these new mechanics in the game and to like implement probably a much more high fidelity audio system in game to make this concert sound good for lots of different people and their setups at home. But then also like think about the back end side, like the work that must have went in to have the server capacity and stability to host this many people, to be able to on the fly adjust the amount of bandwidth needed globally. Like it was insane. Like it's extremely technical, and like Travis Scott or not, like Fortnite or not, like appreciate the sheer amount of power that must have been pumping through Epic's like headquarters and their servers everywhere to make this happen. And it's just really cool. It's really, really cool.
So I don't know if this is one of those changing points, like one of those seminal moments in history. And I don't mean to make it sound that grand. I just mean like it's so crazy to me that an artist would say to his manager, or that maybe his team or his publicist or whoever it was said, hey man, you should debut your new tracks, not tracks in Fortnite. Like that if you would have came to us 10 years ago and said, hey, there's gonna, like, let's say Team Fortress, because that was maybe an equivalent to what Fortnite is back then, a multiplayer game that people are playing, or World of Warcraft. That might have been the last thing that had this close to the numbers in concurrence or something like that. But if you would have said, hey man, Lady Gaga is going to debut her new track Applause in World of Warcraft, we would have been like, that's such a stupid move. But it's one of those things where like, you can't know the future until it's here, and this is the future. Like if there's a list of people, and I don't know if Fortnite is paying people to be in to do the concert, or if the artist is paying to be in Fortnite. Because at some point you get past that point where like they're like, hey, it's more of a benefit for Billie Eilish, maybe not Billie Eilish, but someone to do their concert in Fortnite. But I could see Billie being the next person to do something like this, because I watched the footage, man, and that concert knocked. Like their segment where they're flying through space was effing cool, and like the way it would make people jump, or like if we are all gonna live in Fallout bunkers, that this is an alternative to communal experiences.
There we go. Everyone slap on your VR headset. We're going to the concert.
Yeah, anything else on this thing? It's just cool, right?
No, it is. And you're right. It is. I think it's a little tease of the future, right? Like it's a little bit of what's to come in Fortnite and how does it continue to evolve into the future of that interactive media. So it's cool. Maybe this story is a little bit of the future, but the next story is a little bit of the past. So recently, there was people digging into some of the early Pokemon games on Game Boy, right? So Pokemon Yellow and Blue. They dug into the code and they went straight to the source code, right? And they found all sorts of hints and little tidbits that pointed to a game called Pokemon Pink. And so obviously we know that didn't happen, but there was lots of little references in the code that basically mentioned, like Pocket Monsters Pink and Yellow, or Pink throughout the code. And they've also found all sorts of interesting things like different alternative names for Pokemon. So like Vulpix was going to be Foxfire, right? Cool little things. And so one of the biggest pieces that kind of showed that there might be some credibility to this leak was that there was a photo, like an in-game photo of Pikachu and Clefairy cuddling up together. And so it kind of reminds people of like Pikachu and Eevee cuddling up for the Let's Go games that came out for the Switch last year. And so I think obviously it got scrapped in C'est la vie, right? But I think the other piece is like, how interesting would it have been if there was a Pokemon Yellow, and how much would it have shaped, I think, the future of the games if you had this like other main hero Pokemon from the get-go, from like the beginning and the inception of these games. Like I wonder if it would have radically changed what the character design and what the monster design would have looked like going forward, because they're very different, right? Like
no, and just from a release perspective, so Red and Blue were already out, and if you've played the Pokemon games, they make 2 games and then they make a supplemental game that kind of makes some changes from the other 2, lets you catch different Pokemon maybe in that 3rd version, and then adds a few new legendaries, things like that. So this would have been on that same track. It would have been Red Blue release and then Yellow Pink release. So this could have, like you're saying, impacted history, not only in the monster designer who's popular, because maybe Eevee doesn't get to its level of popularity.
Yeah, exactly.
Clefairy had been there since the beginning or had been pushed as a main Pokemon. But the other thing is, if they had done 2 versions of the game and then 2 alt versions of the game, that would have completely changed our wallet, Nintendo's financials. They would have been making multiple alternates every time.
And then there's the flip side of that is, I think Game Freak gets a lot of heat now for not necessarily taking the franchise as serious as they could in the recent titles. And I don't know, that's a whole nother argument for a different one, right? But I wonder how their resource management would have looked if they were producing these 2 sort of alt titles on the off years. Like it just would have stretched them even more, I feel like. And so it makes you wonder, like, would Game Freak even still have Pokemon from a development point of view now, if maybe they were making more money at the beginning, but like if the quality sort of died off quicker, would they get to hold on to the game all this time? I don't know.
Well, and the next story, staying with Pokemon, and it's interesting in the same way, because we don't know, and this is maybe kind of speaking to how they do filter out that quality that you might have been talking about.
Yeah,
it's basically that we had, so the news story here, let me back up and tell you guys what actually happened, is that there was a leak of a 1999 Space World demo for Gold and Silver. And in this demo source code and all the stuff that they found a bunch of missing Pokemon. And missing Pokemon have kind of trickled out throughout the years. You've seen like, oh, here's a design for this, here's a design for that. But this actually made me realize for the first time that they must have thousands of Pokemon designs sitting in the office that are unused, because you can see like early designs for an alternate version of Heracross, or like the not Hitmontop, Hitmonlee, the one that's the head spinning one,
Hitmonchan.
No, not Hitmonchan. No, I said it. Hitmontop. Yeah. I'm so dumb. Yeah. So there's like an alt version of Hitmontop where like the legs are his head and his eyes are on his chest and the top is his feet. Like, so it's just so weird to see these pseudo alt versions. And me and you, I was texting you pictures of all the ones that I thought were funny looking. The alternate version of Whooper was incredible.
The absolute best.
Yeah. And then I might use it as the picture for the Instagram post just so you guys can see. I'll put it up there. I got you guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll put it on Twitter at the very least.
Yeah. You could just see that there's, like, oh, hey, in Gold and Silver, they had a design that didn't quite make it into the game, but that's what became Celebi, or that's what became Heracross, and you can just see the seeds. So they just must have hundreds of thousands of design like this. Like, you even see the legendary dogs are all on there. So they have the electric one, the fire, and the ice, but they all look way different. And then there was also a leaf one. So there were 4 elemental dogs at some point. And the leaf one looks badass. And I'm a grass starter picker for life. So I'm really sad that I never got that legendary grass dog. But it's just cool that, like, so many years later, like, this is crazy. This was just found recently, like 2 days ago recently.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the grass one, I think it was like Reefy or something, like, looks so sick. There are so many amazing, like, designs that have, I mean, like, I guess I can get it on some level where some of these wouldn't have come through from a balance point of view, but there are so many, like, amazing designs that it's like, yes, like, this should have been, please bring this into the newer gens now, like, revive some of these ideas, as people, like, want new Pokemon and, like, they want to see these new interesting designs. I think this was a perfect era of some designs that we've seen. Like, I love Cyndaquil's design. I love the legendary dogs. Umbreon is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. And so I think Umbreon's design is like one of the absolute best. And so this just seems like a really, no pun intended, golden era of design for some of these Pokemon. And so
yeah, man. Well, and it's so funny because there has been an evolution of design for Pokemon too. Like, they
100%.
used to be rounder and now they're a little more angular, and it's just fun to see the difference. There was this I want to say it was like a legendary looking otter, and I only assume it's a legendary because it was in the back half of the Pokedex with dogs as well. But that one just looks so sick, and so I do hope they go back to it at least, or like at minimum. I really liked that Celebi, that like look like Celebi form, and like at least give you an Alolan form of him with like the flute and let him have a little grass hula skirt and run around, please. Like, it's all I want.
That would be pretty amazing. Speaking of things that might be amazing, it's hard to say, right? So
no, I'm so in.
So last week there was some circulation of a concept for, and I don't know why didn't we pitch this?
We suck. Yeah, they should just get the rights to the pod, dude.
So it's called Seinfeld Adventure, the game about nothing, and it's basically would be chunked up into these like little 30-minute episodic sequences where you would get to play as either Jerry Seinfeld, George Costanza, or Elaine. You wouldn't get to play as Kramer because, quote, in the pitch, they said no one can control Kramer, which is the absolute best reasoning to make someone an NPC I've ever heard. But basically, like, you get put into these little miniature versions of what would be on an episode of Seinfeld, and you control your character, and it's this little narrative experiment, right? And that's it. So the idea is it wouldn't rehash old episodes. It would just kind of create these new moments in the game. And I love the art style. If you haven't seen it, it's very pixel art. It looks really, really great, which I think is appropriate considering you're sort of mashing up like an old TV show, right? So you want to capture some of that era, and in the era of the game would have been very pixel art, right? But like the colors are much more vivid than I think you would have expected, not quite as pastel. The shading looks a lot sharper. So it's just this really cool mashup of like a very past nostalgic franchise with some more modern art tactics that you could do, and it looks good. It looks so fun.
Yeah, it looks like your point and click adventures of old, your Maniac Mansions, your Monkey Island type stuff, which is great. But they had me immediately when they were just like, dump women for arbitrary reasons. I was just like, this is so hilarious.
You're like, just like real life.
Hey man, don't bring my dating history into this. I'm so sorry, every woman. Either way, back to it.
Don't forget to subscribe.
But what I'd say is just watch the trailer. I think if you watch it and you're a Seinfeld fan or even a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, just
definitely
if you're a fan of this, just like watch the trailer to help the trailer get more views. And then they have a hashtag to tweet it out because their entire thing the entire reason they put this together because they want to actually make this game. So the more views it gets, the more exposure it gets. And that's part of, us putting it in the scouting report here today for our fastballs. It's just that we want to give more attention to this because we think it should be made, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be awesome. I think that's true typically of almost any indie game that we come across. I think it would be awesome for it to be made, and this is just one example that it would be so cool. So yeah, definitely check out the video online. It's awesome.
All right, now we're going to shift gears a little bit, go to PlayStation. This is a hot rumor on the streets, but I fully believe it. Basically, because Crash Bandicoot is a franchise that is beloved by many, and Crash trilogy, the remasters, those really sold well, and they got a lot of people, admitting once again, oh yeah, that's right, I do love Crash Bandicoot. So the
100%.
rumor is there's a Crash Bandicoot game that is in development that will be marketed with and launch with the PS5. So of course, take it with a grain of salt, totally a rumor, but you could see this being the move to go back to their PS2 heyday and say, hey, Activision, make us an exclusive Crash game for a year. You can release it on the other consoles next year, and then we're going to pay you for that. But then also, let's market it together. Let's pair up and let's, be a force to do this together. Do you think is a smart idea, JD?
Yeah, I mean, so I think if you look at Sony and Activision's history of recent with Call of Duty, we've talked about that on the pod before. With Destiny, we've talked about that, right? They have this history of trying to get exclusive timed content for the PS5. And so I think there's a lot of that relationship that's there. And I think it could definitely lend a little bit of credibility to the fact that the two companies could be talking. I also agree with you that I grew up on Crash Bandicoot, and so it's certainly a childhood favorite of mine. And if they're, to move the needle into buying a PS5 realm, because I wouldn't say it's there right now for me, but it would certainly help move the needle closer to me wanting to get a PS5. So it would be smart, I think, from a business point of view. And I think if the rumor's true, right, they say that they've been developing this game for like the last 3 years already. So it could be really cool.
Yeah, I think this will be one of the reveals we get very soon. I fully believe this rumor. Again, still a rumor, but I believe it a lot.
Yeah, I think another fairly interesting, it's not so much a rumor, right? So this last week, Chris Grenell, he is former Sony game designer. He worked on Killzone, he worked on Wipeout, and he went on record and said that he thinks that the difference in computing power between the Xbox Series X and the PS5 is, quote, pretty huge. And so the short version of this is he thinks that the next Sony console, the PS5, is going to struggle with big open world style games because he doesn't think that the computing power is there for that console to be able to render the real-time ray tracing that Sony's advertising and just the massive gameplay environments that an open world game would demand. And he's gone on to say, quote, there's only one next-gen console that will be able to do real-time ray tracing. That's a bit of a controversial statement, but Sony skipped over it and didn't talk about it. It comes down to CUs, which is compute units, consistency, and what's on the hardware. So basically, he's basically kind of shitting all over his former employer in favor of Microsoft and the Xbox, and saying it's going to be a little more powerful. So
it's concerning, and
it is.
When a moment ago, you were just saying your world is a little more open to getting a PS5 if Crash is coming. But when I read this story, I'm like,
it turns it off.
Yeah. Open world troubles all around, closing your world and not open in there. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It's troublesome, man. Because that's the thing. It's just like, hey, is speed more important or is power more important? And I think that
we talked about this.
Going to win. Yeah, exactly. We did, and I think power is going to win. And
yeah, we have literally had this exact same discussion on previous rumors where it was Sony's going to load these worlds quicker, but Microsoft's going to have more power. And we went back and forth and said, what's more important in the long run to you? And certainly for me, I can wait 10 seconds for a level to load, but I want that level to load just as fast as it does on launch day 3 years from now as games get bigger and more complex. And I don't think if this rumor, if not to say this guy's opinion, so it's not a rumor, right? But if this gentleman's opinion, if Chris Grenell's opinion is correct on how this hardware is going to work now and in the long run, like that kind of spells a little bit of trouble for the PS5 until PS5 Pro comes out, right? And then they want you to spend another $600. So
of course, yeah, we got to do it. So sticking with Sony here and actually making me probably have to swallow the words I just said to be a hypocrite. Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is apparently a thing, and why would they not do this? So at this point, yes, everything I'm about to talk about, definitely rumors, not confirmed, but there's even a posting for a job for them that's like head of creature creation or whatever, or like someone who's like supposed to do a bunch of design a bunch of creatures. What game has a bunch of creatures? Oh, I don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn with all those robo dinos. Either way, the job posting's there, you can go see it. But right now, the two cool things that recently trickled out were about co-op in the game, and the first story that came out said that there would be a standalone preview to Horizon Zero Dawn that was co-op, and your progress would carry over into the main game. Now, that in itself, I think that's really cool. I would be a big fan of, hey, here's a co-op experience. Maybe it's $20 or $10 or whatever, a self-contained story, something smaller, and you play it co-op, and then everything you do in that actually contributes to your main game. I think that's a brilliant marketing move. So let's just start there, JD. Are you into that?
Yeah, I think that's super smart. Like it's this perfect little sneak peek, right? Where you're getting your feet wet again in the mechanics, you're getting your feet wet again in the world, like you're relearning like the series almost, right? It's a tiny little taste beforehand, and it would absolutely just sort of whet your appetite to getting a lot more of it. And it's super smart, right? It's so clever to say, here's just like the first bit, and we'll see you guys in a couple months, and you can transfer everything you've done so far over. Like, super smart.
Yeah, I love that. So the next part of this rumor has to do with co-op specifically. Now, this is actually not rumored. This has been something that's kind of back behind the scenes confirmed, is that at some point Horizon Zero Dawn 2 was in development for the PS4 and it has switched to PS5. So that's something that you're just like, oh, wow, okay. So that probably adds to the development time, having to switch from one system to the other, from one development tool to the other. We've seen that with a lot of games, them kind of misstepping and having some fumbles. But the other odd piece of information is that apparently the first Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to have co-op and they cut it.
If there is, the ability to switch quickly from console generation to console generation, first party studios will probably be able to do it quite a bit more on the fly. And so I think hopefully, if you look at this, like moving from PS4 to PS5, hopefully it doesn't set them back too much. Cutting co-op hopefully also means then that a lot of that core code to execute that exists in a way that can hopefully be implemented. I think co-op would be awesome. I also think it would add a lot of cool elements to the gameplay mechanics, right? Because there might be instances where you need a buddy to jump in and help you take down a particular like robo dinosaur that it's designed around two people, right? Or maybe like it isn't necessarily something that you have to do, but like if you have a friend that you can take them down, you get, better rewards or loot or something from it, right? So hopefully it's not designed around needing to have a second player, but like if you have one, there's little bonuses to playing the game that way.
The cool thing with this is that apparently the first Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to have co-op, and that now it seems like in some way, shape, or form they are trying to work that in. And the craziest thing is that I was actually just thinking about this, or when we were putting the show together, just that what's the last AAA game, like real AAA game, that had co-op? And I can't think of one that's not like an FPS like a Halo.
Or it's like tacked on.
Yeah, because even in Halo, it's just like, well, I'm Master Chief, or like, oh, it's like, hey, there's 4 Master Chiefs here for whatever reason.
Exactly.
So it's like you can play it co-op, but the story's not designed for it to be co-op.
Yeah.
So it's just I wish them the best. What you were saying, if it's drop in, drop out, that would be super, super awesome.
Yep.
And I can't think of an open world game that's been co-op either. So this is a lot of new territory, and I wish them the best.
Me too. It would be super awesome. I do too.
Yeah.
They're a great developer. So, you know what? And like you said, that would be super awesome. And what is not super awesome is something going on with Valorant on Twitch, right? And so to get you up to speed, Valorant's in beta. And the only way to get a beta key is to watch someone who's playing it on Twitch. And after you've logged enough time, it's just sort of an RNG drop that you might get a key in the chat so that you can also be in the beta, which in and of itself is kind of a clever way to do it. I can definitely see why Riot approached it that way, because you want people watching and engaging and it gets more eyeballs on it. Cool. All that makes sense. What's happening, though, is that there's a lot of top streamers who have advertised that they are running 24/7, which obviously, like, there's no way, right? You just die if you're sitting in front of your computer 24/7 playing this game. And so what's happening is they're saying that they're 24/7, but when they're not online, when they're not live, they're switching to just playing back videos of highlights or like past streams so that they are still technically live, but they're circumventing some of the tools that Twitch has built in for like video on demand and like highlight reels, all so that they can boost their total amount of viewers, and people are flocking to those channels because they can also stay on 24/7 hoping to get a key, right? And so all of it is just like so stupid in my opinion, of like, it's this terrible negative feedback system of people are doing this to get keys and streamers are doing it because they're getting people, and Twitch and Riot aren't stopping it because it's win for them too, because they have even more people on the platform. But it's just sort of detrimental to a live streaming service, I think. Not explicitly promote, but also not reject these channels that aren't live, that just have like a highlight reel playing 24/7, right? Like, what's your take on this?
I don't like it. I feel like they're not abusing, but they're, they're taking advantage of their viewers and their players. I'm not a fan of it, and I don't know if they're getting a paycheck on the back end from Twitch to launch the game like this and to do this. But this sounds like one of those things that when you're in like a pitch room and it sounds like a good idea, like, hey, we're gonna let people unlock their beta key by watching people play the game. That sounds like a really,
that sounds awesome.
Like, yeah, but then in practice, it's not working because there's one, the ways to abuse the system, take advantage of it, and then two, it's just, I don't know, man. It feels dirty. That's my only take. It feels dirty.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like kind of crappy, and it just feels like Twitch should step in as the platform and kind of enforce a little bit about this 24/7 thing, because it's not healthy either, right? It's encouraging these marathon viewing sessions, which I don't think is good for people who are, because for a streamer, like they'll stream 10 to 12 hours a day and then walk away, and they get to walk away, right? And it feels like a lot of viewers are maybe hovering around their computer constantly while they're in these chats trying to get a key, and it's not healthy, I don't think, for anyone, and it kind of defeats the whole purpose of like a live streaming platform. So I don't know, there's not a lot about this that I like on any front. All of the parties involved, I think, are in the wrong.
I agree with you. Well, something else that kind of tears down the live streaming platform is our good friends over at Twitch, the Twitch streamers. They are streaming themselves growing that ganja. Now, look, Twitch is a place for all kinds of creation and growing games. You got your Harvest Moons, your Stardew Valleys, you're making stuff in Minecraft and Terraria. You're out there creating. You know who else is creating?
Who's creating?
My guy Potquest.
So
he's out there growing.
So it's interesting, right? Because they have a gardening section, right, on Twitch that you can go into. And so, like you said, like, it's interesting because there's people who are like playing gardening games like Stardew. There's people who are playing like a garden simulator game, right? And then there's people who are like IRL showing off like their garden in the backyard, or like there's one stream with like an apple orchard that people are walking through and picking apples. And then there's very much, and especially because this is coming out 5 days after 420, right? In 420, like, it was this absolute perfect catalyst for all of these streamers to just go on and stream themselves growing pot, right? It's very interesting. Like,
well, it's so funny because like when people think of Twitch and Mixer, they think of gamers first. They think of esports. They think of someone with a controller or a keyboard in front of them. But there's a lot of stuff on Twitch. One of my favorite ones is like some guy who has just like a guitar and he's playing like crazy music and he's just like doing fortune telling. There's a guy who bounty hunts on Twitch that's really great to watch. So there's all kinds of stuff like this, and this is just another one of those things where it's a 24-hour camera on the person's grow lab, and they just come in there occasionally and they do stuff, and they're just showing the cannabis growing over time, and they get between 20 to 100 concurrent viewers for these, and there's multiple channels that are doing this. But I don't know, man. You know what?
Well,
it's like, not bad, right? Like, right? I don't know.
It's not bad, right? Like, it's interesting because, like you said, Twitch has become a lot more than just games, and so these people are approaching their 24/7 or whenever they're live, like, pot channels, as the same way a Twitch streamer who's playing Valorant or whatever would approach it, right? Like, they are gathering streamers and they're getting sponsorship deals from very different like, so we joke about G Fuel and like DX Racer chairs, right, and all this stuff, right? And these people are going like getting sponsorships from like gardening or like local like pot stores or whatever, right? And so they're approaching it in the same vein. And I think the key piece from Twitch is like, as long as you're in a state where it's legal or a country, where it's okay. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like, you can't stop it,
Yeah, so Twitch, they probably don't like this, right? Amazon is like, this is not good for them. So to jump on that, JD, I have a pitch for you within the pitch. So the game pitch here. Basically, we should start our own, not exactly PodQuest style channel, but we start a Twitch channel for Game Pitch where we get a bunch of people who offsite, they get stoned out of their mind in their cars. Then they come in and we do a pseudo spelling bee, and then they have to like spell big words, and they also have to use them in a sentence or give us the definitions of it, and we call it high definition, and I'll host it.
Oh, yes, that is gotta happen.
Okay, I was like, Game Pitch is gonna bring you high definition.
Sponsored by
sponsored by G Fuel.
G Fuel.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, that's it. I love it. I am so excited for that.
Yeah, the only stoner spelling bee on the internet. Let's make it.
It's got to happen. No one else. That's a trademark now. That's a verbal trademark. So don't you dare try to steal that. All right. So let's move on. We have our last two picks of the fastballs. And so I'll start with mine. So Phil Spencer this week on Twitter, he basically teased that we're not too far off from seeing games in the lineup for the new Xbox, right? One thing I love about Phil, I've said it on the pod before, is he's very transparent. I think he's trying to make a very transparent Xbox team where people are openly sort of sharing these things and not, hiding information as much as they can, right? There's obviously some secrecy to launches, and I get it, right? It's still a business. They still need to generate hype, but they're all being very approachable online and on Twitter and other various web sources to answer questions and try to give people what they need to know about the next Xbox. And so someone asked Phil, how do you feel about the eventual reveals of games and, what's going on? And he said, hey, I literally just reviewed some plans yesterday. Everyone is doing a great job working remote, and we're, not too far off from showing you the next step. And then in parentheses, he put games. Xbox and Microsoft, their plan is still to put this new console out this holiday season. And so I think it makes sense that, we're close to, we're not too far off when E3 would have happened. And now that we don't have this hard week of news cycle for falling into the E3 sort of paradigm, right? I think it gives these companies a lot of flexibility for what and when they will show stuff off. And so I hope, we start to see some games in May. I think that'd be awesome.
I think the best part of this was just a random comment on Twitter, and Phil just responded to it. That's the cool, like you said, everything you said about him, I agree with. I will say, just quick note, Shannon Jade, the love that JD expels for Phil Spencer does in no way mean that we are not loyal to Stadia and you and Google and, the idea of gaming anywhere with you, my Google gals. Okay, back to you, JD.
Of course, everything Eli said is just true. That's kind of my take on it all. I like Phil Spencer a ton. I think he's doing a great job with the Xbox team, and I am stoked to see what they have up their sleeves for the Series X launch.
Yeah, sounds like it's soon. We'll definitely cover it on the pod. And
sure.
We got to see Halo. Show me the Fable.
We have to. Show me Fable. Please show me Fable. God.
Now, our last story here today in the Fastballs is about Mario Maker Deuce L2. And there was a final update that came to the system and to the game itself. People are pretty excited about this. It's already out there in the wild. So if you are a Mario Maker 2 fan, please go play it. They added the Koopalings in multiple levels, or not multiple levels, but in multiple formats in the game.
Right.
So you can mess around with the Koopalings and all those. The biggest thing, I think, was the World Maker, where you can create your own worlds and put your levels throughout the worlds. I think that's really the coolest thing. And then they did add the Mario 2 mushroom, where you basically become Doki Doki Panic Mario, and you can lift stuff up and throw it. So that's a new innovation for the game, and I think that will really change a lot of the gameplay.
There's other little bits to it, right? So like you can put your world underground, you can put snow, sky, forest. There's a space theme, so it's cool. Like they've added a lot, I think, to this update. And so if you play the game, if you play Mario Maker 2 and you haven't updated yet, definitely a good time to jump back in. I think there's a lot to kind of put into those worlds, right?
No, I agree. And this might seem too little too late. I think a lot of the streamers and people that were playing it wish that a lot of this stuff would have trickled out over the last few months rather than just holding it all till now. But they are all flocking back. I've seen a ton of the streamers that I watch on Twitch playing again, enjoying it and laughing with their chats. So I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, and I think also to some degree you kind of have to expect that of Nintendo, where like they take their sweet time making things and patching things in at the rate that they want, kind of knowing that people will come back. Because with other companies, I don't know if we'd give them the same amount of slack to say like, oh man, this should have been fixed a long time ago. And then with Nintendo, it's kind of like, like they're gonna patch this when they want, and like
they're gonna do it, yeah.
And people are still gonna come back and play it because of course they are, right?
Yeah, because we're slaves to Nintendo's will.
We really are.
We're cheap when it comes. It's so weird in life. I try to not be like just going with the flow or like what the crowd does. But when it comes to Nintendo, man, I am a sheep. I will bleed like gleefully, just blah. Give me more blathers, blah. Like just
oh my god. Especially now at Animal Crossing, they put out that little video, which we'll talk about here in a bit during the scouting report. They just kind of drip fed some Animal Crossing stuff for the coming months. And I'm like, yes, please, more. Like,
well, I don't want to keep you away from it too long, JD. Let's jump to the scouting report. We got 3 big stories this week. Our first one was about Spider-Man 2. There are some sequel rumors out there, and this was actually all from a Zoom meeting, apparently. So there's someone who's leaking the information, but there was an Insomniac team Zoom call the day before these rumors came out. So we think that this is where this all came from, and also lends just a little bit more validity to it.
Obviously, no one on that Zoom meeting leaked any of this very, very publicly, right? Like, it was kind of a coincidental timing of we knew there was a Zoom meeting, and then a day or two later, a lot of this stuff leaked out. And so people are kind of putting 2 and 2 together. Some of the stuff that's being talked about, there's a pretty dynamic weather system that's being put into place, right? So there's rain, there's snow, there's heavy snow because the game is now moved into the winter. And so that's part of it. They're adding in a lot of dynamic missions as well. And so the neighborhood sort of will ebb and flow a bit differently than the first game. And so missions will kind of pop in and out frequently depending on things happening in the time of day and the weather and like what's happening in the story, right? And things also like you may miss. So like one of the things is like a construction worker is going to like fall off a building that he's working on, right? And like if you don't get over it there in time, like there's not really a way to hold that, right? Like the dude's just gone, right? So some interesting like dynamics from a mechanic point of view. From a story point of view, it's kind of following a more classic comic book story, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just to add on to what you said there, it's basically they want to put the friendly back in friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I think that was one of the things that got out there. And I believe there's also a day and night system too. So I believe that the city will rotate throughout that along with the dynamic side missions. Of course, like we said, this is all rumors at this point. But when you sit down and you think about it, these sound like the things that you would add to a sequel, like what we're missing from the original game. And like you said, it is going more with a very familiar comic book story. There is a thick boy Eddie Brock that is going to be in it. There have been leaked art assets that have shown the Venom symbiote. And when you have, of course, the Venom symbiotes involved, that can be Carnage, that can be, symbiote suit Spider-Man. And there was even some rumors that like there's going to be symbiote versions of every costume. So like there's going to be all the different costumes, but then there's going to be alternate symbiote version of it as well, which sounds really cool. Please freaking do that. There was also some notes about the DLC that's potentially coming out involving kind of in the same way they did it last time with the 3 different after stories with Morbius, Wraith, and Carnage. So those are some more rumors as well. And just on the story side, apparently Pete's back at the Daily Bugle and then this will be the first time we see J. Jonah Jameson in this universe in person because he was the podcast before. And then now this time he'll be actually at the Bugle with Pete.
And MJ won't be in it, right? She's somewhere else in this storyline.
Yeah. It said that she's abroad, so I don't know if that's really she's going to be removed from the story completely, or like maybe she's, hey, I'm in Europe, and she gets the symbiote and she brings it back to Pete. Like who knows exactly what happens?
Interesting.
But they did say that MJ's abroad, so maybe the missions you play as MJ are in different cities, different locations. That could definitely mix up the gameplay. I think that would be cool.
I think the last little bit, right, is that the rumor is that Harry's obviously going to be the first host of the Oscorp created symbiote in this version of the game, right? So, which is awesome. Yeah, I think that this is cool, and I think it's, obviously with how insanely popular the first game was, and I think Insomniac just killed it, right? They absolutely crushed it. And I think everyone was happy all around. Sony was extremely happy and Marvel was extremely happy with it. And fans loved the game because it was amazing, right? Like, did you get to play? Did you dig into it?
Oh, I beat that thing. I beat it
Okay,
up.
good.
Played the whole thing. Almost platinum.
Okay.
It's so good.
Okay.
It's the best.
Okay.
It's amazing.
Just making sure. Yeah, no. So I am not shocked to hear that there's rumors of a second one. Here's my thought. This is going to go PS5, right? There's no way they hold this for PS4.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. So again, we'll be hypocrites and we'll have to buy the PS4.
PS5.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You're right. You know what, JD? I see how it is. Look, before we move on to this last piece, I just have to say one final thing on Spidey here. As the brown person on the podcast, where's Miles? Where he at? Where's Miles? Where Miles? You know, like how when Michael on Lost yells Walt, I want to yell Miles like that. Or like in The Wire when they're like, "Where's Wallace?" I want to yell that, but like Miles. Like, where's Miles? Where's he at? Where he at? Like, I'm just. Where you at, String? Where's Miles Morales? He's the best.
And obviously, everything we've talked about is rumors, right? And so, what if Miles is in this and we just haven't seen it because, like, they haven't actually shown anything, right? That could be super cool. I'd actually kind of love that, honestly. If this leak isn't really giving us everything we want to hear, I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it. Obviously, it makes us, like you said, eat our words, and now we're going to have to get a PS5, right?
It's going to suck. I'm going to be real mad about it.
I know. I'll do it begrudgingly for the games.
My PS4 is in the closet right now, and it's only coming back out when Last of Us comes.
Mine's on my desk, but it's kind of like this fancy stand for a photo frame. I don't know. I'll have to turn it on, make sure it still works. Okay. Now that we've beat Sony over the bat, apparently, here, like, let's move on to our next piece of news in the scouting report. So, more rumors, lots of rumors. So, new Assassin's Creed game rumored, and this is the exciting part, is that we may actually know what it is as early as later this month, right? So, in the next couple days, or very early May, they may actually announce it and reveal what this game is about. But one thing that people have been kind of trying to dig into is it looks like it may be a kind of Viking land, very Scandinavian, but also mixing in a lot of supernatural, mystic, mythical elements, which are supposed to tie into the first civilization. And so before we go any further than that, I love the idea of that as a setting. I think it would be a ton of fun. What about you? How do you feel about that?
They've got to do it. They have to mix it up. They got to get out of Rome and the Viking stuff is fresh and new. It might not be fresh and new for us gamers because recently God of War. I actually laugh about the trajectory of like God of War being like more Greek and then going Viking and this doing the same thing. Like that was just making me laugh. But yeah, add more sci-fi, add more mystical elements. Like I'm always a fan of like more fantastical and weird. Like get strange with it. Yeah, let's go. Like just do whatever weird stuff you have to do. I'm into it.
I think it's a cool setting, and I think too it could add like the ability to add back in like some of that ocean combat that we've seen in previous titles, and kind of that Black Flag like ocean boat combat. Like they have the code written for that, right? So it could very well make its way back into this future game. One thing that doesn't sound like it will be making its way in though is a co-op mode, which people have wanted, right? I don't know if I've been necessarily like, not that I would ever be like, oh man, this is terrible that there is co-op, right? But like, I don't know if I care about it as much. What about you?
Yeah, I don't really see Assassin's Creed as a co-op series, but hey, if Horizon Zero Dawn's going to do it, then these guys are going to have to catch up and figure it out because the fans have been requesting it. And another piece, just like the rest of the series or recent entries in the series, there is male and female protagonists. But one of the rumors says that the female protagonist is the canon story. And I think that that's kind of cool for them to say, hey, you can play it as male or female, but one of these is what actually happened, who the person was. And I think that's a fun, twist on the letting you choose your own character by establishing a canon character.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. And so it's rumored that obviously the female will be the majority of the marketing. It is like Eli said, it is the core canon story character. You could play as the guy if you want, but that's not the way that they're trying to design it. And as long as they do it in a way that isn't like really pandering to be like, oh, look, like our main character's a girl, right? Like as long as it's written in a really tasteful, thoughtful way, then I think it's a smart move. My fear always with stuff like this is like, people are like, oh yeah, we're going to add like a female character to the game because like we're trying to be very like socially just and like very appropriate. And then it actually backfires horribly when it's just sort of like an afterthought or like tacked on. And so I hope that they are approaching this in a very smart way. So
yeah, doing it for the story reasons and not necessarily for the optics. I'm
yep.
totally with you on that. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna do something smart because I had ripped off my warm up pants, my button ups and stuff when the pod started.
Perfect.
I got like full. I got into full uniform. I'm gonna put back on my warm ups here, button them back up. I'm gonna sit on the bench and I'm gonna let you take all these plays here because it's Animal Crossing time. And boy, oh boy, did they do well, buddy.
Let's say that there's a lot to this, and so we're gonna go piece by piece. So first things first, they had absolutely massive digital sales through the month of March, which is insane because they came out on the 20th. So they only had like 11 days to really sell through in March, but they absolutely crushed it. They were the best-selling game of all of March, which then jumped them to the number 2 best-selling game of the year spot. So in that 11 days, and now you figure you have all of April, but we haven't even seen April's data yet. They just absolutely skyrocketed in terms of raw sales. That in turn led them to now be, which is the 3rd highest launch month for physical dollar unit sales for any Nintendo game in the tracked history of Nintendo games, which is nuts, right? And then to really round it out, their launch month sales, so their total dollar sales for New Horizons, exceeded the lifetime sales for all the other Animal Crossing games in the franchise. The numbers are huge. They're staggering. And this is just talking about software. We talked about before how this is absolutely selling hardware for Nintendo too. Me and my wife bought one of the Animal Crossing Switches. Like, I know those bad boys sold out everywhere. So like, this is huge. So all that's to say that right now, only Super Smash Bros. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Brawl have sold more physical copies in their launch months than New Horizons have. But what could happen is that at the current sell-through rate that we've seen, New Horizons could very well, in short order, become the absolute best-selling game on the Switch right now. So let's start with that, right? Because that's just the very narrow launch window. We're talking like the last month the game's been out, right? Month and a handful of days. Give me your thoughts on all that.
The number that sticks out to me is the 5 million copies worldwide. That's just crazy to me. Like, I love it. And especially, it released so late in the month, man, like on the 20th.
How in the world?
And it broke a previously held sales record by Call of Duty Black Ops 4, like for digital sales in 1 month. So if the fact that Nintendo and what we'll talk about later, this, colorful, cute game featuring animals that have singular personality traits that are just running around the island with their anxieties could do this amount of numbers is mind-boggling to me. I love it. And it probably did better than it might have done because of the quarantine, because people being at home and things like that, and everyone just being on Twitter and seeing it. But I got to give my hat, hand it to Nintendo and just say, here, just take it. They got my money. I bought it. So good job, guys.
Oh yeah. I bought 2 copies of it as well as a Switch. So yeah, I mean, it's huge. And I think you're right. But I don't think we can look at it as just the lens of quarantine helped, because I think that's going to be true for pretty much anything coming out during this quarantine, right? Like Doom saw massive sales. And I don't know if theirs would have been as strong without quarantine, right? So I don't know if we need to asterisk it as much. I agree with what you're saying, but I think if we're going to apply that filter to Animal Crossing, we have to apply it to most all
fairly
media.
Across the board. I'm totally with you. But just like the headline, I guess, for me is, Animal Crossing took the digital sales record from Call of Duty.
I know.
Like that's the same thing we did earlier, that thought experiment. Like if you could have gone back 10 years and said, hey, the new Animal Crossing game when it launches in 10 years is going to outsell Call of Duty, we would have looked at you and laughed. But it happened. And wow,
indeed. And so wow, from a business point of view, congrats Nintendo, but let's also say wow from a player point of view, right? Because Nintendo has already sort of decided to drip feed us what we have to look forward to into June. And so some of that we're getting now, right? So if you haven't updated it, shame on you. You should have done this literally the second it came out. But right now, because of Earth Day, they reintroduced Leaf into New Horizons. And so Leaf was selling all sorts of cool shrubbery that you could get and special flowers. He was buying weeds back more than the Nooklings would at Nook's Cranny. So that's super fun. They added Red back in as like this shady art dealer, right? He's going to have a boat that docks up at the secret beach. And so that then triggered the museum, which is getting a third wing now. And so now you'll be able to find and collect rare art pieces to put into the museum. So it's added, if you're a completionist, if you're a collector in games, it's added an entirely new piece there from a museum point of view. And then there's so many people online that are like, hey, cool. Like I had designed my island and then Nintendo came out with hedges and bushes. And so now I have to start over. And that's like absolutely where I was at, where I'm like, oh, I measured everything down to the square, like pixel. Now I need to like redo half of my island to like put some bushes. Like, come on, for bushes. But then it just goes to show, like, they've really sort of figured us out, right? They've really figured out these Animal Crossing players where they're like, hey, here's tree. And everyone's like, like nuke my whole island. Like,
yeah, they got you. They got you bad. You got it.
They really did.
As Usher would
really
say.
did.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. And so that's just now, right? That's just in April. Going into May, going into June, they've showed off like they're reintroducing May Day tours, which should be really fun. They've showed off like this whole wedding season thing where you like get to go be like a wedding photographer and like take cute little photos of your villagers and other villagers posing for wedding. Like it's just so outlandish that these little things hook us as players so hard. And like, I'm so excited for them. Like, I cannot wait. Like, I don't know.
They're geniuses. I think they have a whole year. I think they have a whole year planned for you. So it's just easily a happy time.
It is. It's an extremely happy time. And so you'll hear in a little bit. First, we're going to have Eli pitch a game, but we're going to move to our red card after that. And so there's so much goodness about Animal Crossing right now that it's going to make our red card that much sweeter. But before we get there, that's the end of our scouting report, and we're going to move right into the signature staple of our podcast, which is the game pitch itself. So Eli, this week, you've been hyping up to me that you think this is the stupidest pitch that you've ever come up with. I am extremely excited. I can't wait, and I want you just take it away.
Shannon, Jade, Google, I'm speaking specifically to you now. This is a game pitch where this idea, it came from a mistake. It came from a fumble. It came from an iPhone being stupid. So that's why you should want to do it all the more, to crush Apple, because you are Google. I get it. But this game, it's JD for you. It's a racing game, and it's in the Mario Kart style with the 3 laps and all of that. So I was talking to one of my friends about Doom, trying to text them and see what was going on, and there was a typo that happened. So the game is essentially you play as a woman in the Doom universe, and the Hellspawn, Satan himself, or some demon, has knocked you and 7 other racers. You've all been knocked up by the same demon. And the only way to live is to deliver this baby, but only one can be delivered. So the course essentially is 3 laps, and every lap is a trimester, and you are in these hell hot rods, and you're racing around the course. And each lap, like I said, is a trimester, and you get more and more pregnant with this demon spawn as you race along. God. And when you cross the finish line, you give birth to the Satan monsters demon spawn. And this game, JD, is called Vroom Maternal, because I tried to type Doom Maternal into my phone, and what came out was VROOM, Vroom, and the word not eternal but maternal. And my friend was like, yo man, how's Vroom Maternal? He was like, what?
Oh my goodness. That is the best typo that has ever led to a game idea ever. And it's actually, I think we should explore making all of our game pitches based solely off of our phone's autocorrect, which makes me think how many games are we going to have that's like ducking and then something after it. So
Okay, so to pull back, I told you it was one of the stupidest things ever.
It's incredible, but you were wrong. But go on.
I do think there is some validity to there being a racing game, more kart games just in general. I like them. A racing game set in the franchise. I think it would be really interesting to pick up power-ups and blow up other pregnant racers with your BFG or the super shotgun.
There are so many like activist and like rights groups that would absolutely tear us to shreds if we ever remotely started making this game.
For the sadist aspect or the blowing up other preggers ladies?
Just that all of it. It's all.
I'm just saying, man. How clever is the each lap is a trimester of pregnancy, huh?
That I do love. Look, there's a lot to love here, and I'm not saying we shouldn't make it. We obviously should take the heat on this one and produce this game. Just for the name alone, honestly, the lawsuit material writes itself.
Look, JD, ultimately the decision's not yours. It's not mine. It's up to JD and Shannon.
Our friends at Stadia.
Yeah.
Guys, we know you want this in your portfolio, the crowning jewel of Stadia. If you guys wanted to sell Stadia Pro subscriptions, this is it. Vroom Maternal.
Yeah, look, I got to tell you, I know that there's probably a lot of medical stuff and concerns, and we might have to hire someone because I'm no Dr. Goomba Tower myself, but I do think showing the process of demon birth is really, an untapped market in all of this.
Yeah, it's probably untapped for a reason. The more we talk about it, the more I'm realizing there's probably a lot no one wants to see it, which is why no one has.
Do you have Dr. Goomba Tower's number and we can call and consult him?
We'll have to do it off the pod. He's very shy.
Okay. Let's move to the red card.
That was a great pitch. Thank you so much. And if you just listen to that, it probably completely derailed everything I was talking about before about Animal Crossing. So to sum up, Animal Crossing equals good. Our red card this week is an article that was published on Business Insider, written by Jack Crosby, who summed the game up more or less by saying that it is frustrating, tedious, and immensely boring, and said it's a stupid game and for babies, right?
Yeah. It's dumb and boring and for children. Yeah, so...
Terrible, right? And here's the thing, it's an opinion piece, and like obviously you can have your opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like I totally get that. Our whole podcast is our opinion, basically, right? We talk about the news and how it makes us feel. I just think like it's very interesting. I don't know, like this person's like, I have no connection to my villagers or the characters that come through the island, and I'm like, how could you not like fall in love with so many of these villagers that are out there, right? Like people spend so much in-game money and time hunting down villagers that they've loved over the course of this series, right? Like I just don't get it. I don't understand like why. And so then you have someone who's like, I barely play it. I put 10, 15 hours in, which is a good amount of time, but I think that's hardly scratching the surface of the game. And so I don't think it's then fair to be like, it's bad. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, no. And I'm with you. Cause if let's say the person played the game for 3 days and they did like 6 hours one day, 4 hours another day, and then 5 hours the next day, like playing Animal Crossing for 3 days, you might come away with the inner, opinion that it's not a good game, but cause it makes you wait for stuff. But Animal Crossing has never been like, hey, play 20 hours a day every day. It's been like, hey, stop in, do some things. It's more of a not fetch quest or like do your dailies, but it's a daily check-in. It's like more of a ritual than it is a play it for 40 hours straight kind of thing.
Yeah.
The thing that I had some umbrage with was when he said that the user interface, the UI, was slow, clunky, and infuriatingly designed, and I would disagree pretty much staunchly across the board. It's very simple. It's in most cases activatable by one trigger press, and then it's on your little Nook phone there. So I think everything makes sense in the context of how people do things in life today. I don't know why that would be frustrating, because there's a phone. Yeah. You have a phone in life, it has all your stuff you need. You have a phone in the game, it has all the stuff you need. And I didn't see anything. I definitely, like, maybe if you don't like the design, that's a different thing. But slow and clunky, I don't think that comes into play here.
Also, I think he's just bad at the game, because like one of the things he says is, how come it's so hard to equip my net when I'm being chased by wasps? Like, if you hit the button to pull up your inventory, like the wasps fly around you in a pretty predictable circle. And so you can time pulling your net out and catching them. Like, So maybe if you played more than 10 hours of the game, you'd get good at that mechanic and it would no longer be like such a frustrating piece of it. I don't know. A lot of this, I think, again, stems from like not really playing it.
Yeah, or like let's say he didn't go and get like the item wheel from the ATM.
Yeah.
Like so, and that would maybe make it seem more frustrating. But if you had played it a little more or over multiple days, then you would have got those things. Because I guess maybe Animal Crossing is a little daunting for new players because we just know, oh yeah, there's going to be this, and that we can grab to make our lives easier at some point. And that's part of the reason why I time travel.
Yeah, but then like at the other half of it, right? If it is daunting for new players, why has this game sold the best? Why was it the best-selling game in all of March? Like, how is it now almost the best-selling Switch game? Like, how are we seeing such a wide variety of people participating and playing this game? Like, if it was so daunting up front, like, I think we'd hear a lot more of this opinion than the other opinions, which we are hearing, which is, oh my gosh, like, I love this villager. Oh my gosh, this person's so cute. Like we're getting all these other pieces, right? So
all the tweets, all the happiness, and look, and I'm ready to crown them here, and I'll wait for your cosign on this. But top tier humans like Elijah Wood and Chrissy Teigen are playing the game and sharing it and loving it.
Brie Larson,
really, can it be wrong? Yeah, exactly. Brie as well. Yeah, top tier humans, all three of them, the trifecta. In fact, I think that's going to become our Father, our Son, and our Holy Ghost, or whatever, of the podcast for our Animal Crossing blessings on people.
It's like our stamp of approval for Animal Crossing.
In the name of the Larson and the Elijah Wood and the Chrissy Teigen, amen.
Oh, geez. I love it. That's our red card. That's our red card this week. Sorry to give it to you, I guess, but not really. Yeah, sorry, Jack Crosby, you had it coming. So, all right. We don't have any penalties, I think, from last week, or if we did miss one and we just didn't catch it, you can always let us know by tweeting at us or emailing us, which moves us on to the end of the show. Thanks for listening. A little bit of a long one, but like we said, we had a lot to talk about.
It's good stuff, man. I'm happy we're here. I forgot to tell you guys that I backed Sea of Stars, the game from Sabotage Studios, the makers of, what's it called? The Messenger. Yeah, so
yeah, you talked about this like last week. Yeah.
That's awesome. I backed it. It's coming out 2022. I also backed Psychonauts 2, which was supposed to come out in 2018. And I'm factually looking at a vinyl record of Rasputin with his head exposed, so you can see his brains, and it spins around, and it's a vinyl record in there. But like, I'm like, really, I haven't had the best luck with games that I've backed because it's always just like, oh, here's the date, and then it's just like, psych, it'll be eventually.
So you've basically doomed this game, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Every game I've backed has been historically like delayed multiple times, and I've only backed like maybe 5 or 6 games in my life.
Thank you so much. So I think that wraps it up for us. You can connect with us a ton of ways. So we're on Twitter and Instagram at GamePitchPod. I am at J to the D, and Eli is at Mario RPGino. On YouTube, you can search GamePitch Podcast. You can email us at gamepitchpodcast@gmail.com. Like we mentioned at the top, we are on Apple, we're on Google, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. We'll have content through Instagram and Twitter. We're all over the interweb. So please talk with us. Give us your thoughts. Give us your criticisms. We want to hear them, and we want to get better.
Yeah, but more specifically, find us on Spotify. That's what I want.
We're there. Yeah, if you use Spotify, find us there. If you use something else, we're probably on that too. So
no, go to Spotify.
Wow, dude, are you paid by Spotify? Did you get a check that I didn't see?
I gotta pay for these YouTube edits somehow. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys. We'll catch you next week
on Spotify.